Good evening, everyone. I've been yapping now for a couple minutes. There we go. Everybody is really angry at me. Fantastic. You know what? There's really nothing like a false start to really help a stream come together. So just pretend everything I've said so far has been really wonderful. I've absolutely nailed it. Actually, the great irony of all of this is as I was interrupted so rudely by everybody screaming at me that I was doing it wrong. I was talking about how I don't really know what I'm doing and I don't really know how to stream. So let's start over. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here this evening. This is Off Model, a brand new live weekly show that I'll be doing every Wednesday at 7 p.m. This show is just a kind of a roundup of some industry news, talking about some new things in the motion design and the animation industry, as well as some live demos, some live tutorials, that kind of stuff. And so I'll kind of get into that a little bit later on. For those of you unfamiliar with me, my name is Elijah Sheffield. I go by Sweet Boy online. I'm a professional motion designer, obviously not a professional streamer, but that's okay. We got it solved. We figured out how to click the button that turns the microphone on. A somewhat pivotal and important piece of streaming. But nevertheless, like I said, I'm a professional motion designer, and I teach Blender here on YouTube. So, got a great episode for you today. Now that we got everything smoothed out and we got it figured out, got a great episode. It's the pilot episode, so this will probably not be the only technical hurdle. I streamed a local stream to the fort last night, and there was quite a while I was going through and showing something on my screen just to realize my screen wasn't even showing. So you know what? This is not the first or the last hurdle that we'll experience this evening. But the topic for the pilot episode today is Blender 5.0's very exciting release, or kind of a lack thereof, truthfully. But we will get into that. Before we get deeper into the show, I want to remind you to like this video, subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already, and comment something. Let me know if you like the show. Let me know what your thoughts were on just watching me speak mutely for 5 minutes or however long that was, and let me know what you'd like to see maybe next week on episode 2. So follow me on Instagram, on Twitter now. I have a Twitter. It's sweetboy.motion, just like everything else. I'll be doing a lot more news for the show and kind of getting into show updates there. But follow me on Instagram if you're not already for behind the scenes and some finished work, that kind of stuff. And if you are not already a member of Members Only here on YouTube, it's $10 a month. The subscription gets you access to exclusive project files, exclusive breakdown videos that I really go into depth and talk about how I make the lo-fi videos. And the biggest perk of all, you get access to the Fort, a private Discord server. And I'm in there with a bunch of really talented artists. We're in there every day, kind of cutting it up, having a good time, and just being friends. Last night we did a portfolio review at the second live event, and right now we currently have Mitchell, I just saw, said he liked it better when it was muted. Fantastic, thank you. I'm going to try to ignore the chats as I'm going, so your bullying, your arrows, your flaming arrows are going to bounce off my armor as I continue to rock through this. Great. We're going to have a great show. We're going to have a great time. Check out Members Only. It's right here on YouTube. You can head over to my page and it'll be right next to the subscribe button if you want to join, get access to all that, and join us. So before we get into our actual live demonstration today, we're actually going to go over some newsworthy news in the animation industry. I think the first and kind of the biggest topic, for me at least, is the release, or the non-release rather, of Blender 5.0. Now, it's a very exciting drop. Anytime Blender, our mothership for a lot of artists here, drops an LTS long-term support model, a new release model, it's kind of an exciting thing. There's usually quite a few exciting and interesting and helpful tools in there. This one, it's a little bit lackluster in my opinion, and we'll get into maybe why that is a little bit later on, but nevertheless, it kind of got kicked down the road a little ways. Now, it's not to the magnitude of like a Kanye delay or a GTA 6 delay, but nevertheless, it is still delayed a little bit, about a week. And so I think the current standing is the 18th. November 18th is going to be the drop of Blender 5.0. So that's pretty exciting. It's still currently in beta. I believe the release candidate maybe dropped today, so you can check that out, download and check that out. And we will actually get into live here on air some of the cool new tools and some of the cool new features that have been added, and we'll get into how to use them in a more pragmatic sense. You know, there's a billion and one videos of like, these are the earth-shattering new tools in Blender. There's nothing earth-shattering in Blender 5.0, but there are some really cool things, and we're going to kind of take a look at them in perhaps a comprehensive way. So another headline, this might be less interesting to the people who are strictly Blender, but Overlord has now come to Photoshop. So if you're familiar with Overlord at all, it's a wonderful product by the amazing company Battleaxe. If you do any After Effects work or any 2D motion design work, if you're not familiar with them, you definitely should familiarize yourself with them. But if you are familiar and you're familiar with Overlord, then you know how exciting it is that it's come to Photoshop. Overlord 2.6 has now expanded to integrate Photoshop's layer system, the adjustments, all the minor tweaks that you can make in Photoshop. You can immediately send it over to Illustrator just like that. I tested it myself today. It's super fast. There's almost no latency. It's really wonderful. So again, if you're not familiar with Overlord, it is essentially a program that allows you to take shape layers or now, you know, vector objects or images, layer styles, all that, and ship it from one piece of software to the next. Very exciting, very cool operation, and saves you a whole lot of time. So you don't have to now save an Illustrator file with like 50 channels all split up and then bring it in and resort them. It's now such that you can just bring it in with the click of a button with Overlord, which is exciting. And now that's expanded to Photoshop. So super cool. Free update if you have purchased Overlord in the past year. If not, it is a $70 re-up to get this new expansion. And if you don't have it at all, if you've never bought it and you're interested, you can check that out. I'll have it linked below in the show notes, but you can pick it up. It is a $75 buy-in if you're coming to it fresh. So if you use After Effects, if you're a freelancer of any kind and clients give you these giant Omni packages of a bunch of assets, this is completely invaluable. It's worth every dime. Check that out. And the last bit of news that I have before we get into the mainstay of today, getting into Blender 5.0, is actually another bit of Blender news, the launch of Blender Lab. So Blender Foundation, it announced the Blender Lab, a dedicated innovation space for very innovative work. Now, I'm kind of an idiot. I mean, take the blunder at the beginning of the show as proof of that, but it was kind of a convoluted article to me. I couldn't really fully comprehend everything that it was trying to convey, but something that I kind of pulled out of it, or it was probably the main point of it, and I was just barely able to glean the information from it, is that they're going to start doing miniature projects that are kind of outsourced to other teams rather than the fundamental Blender development core group. And they're going to do this so that they can focus on innovation, experimentation, new feature sets, brand new tools, and they can kind of just pioneer off like how Blender kind of did in the past. But because Blender is so large, because it's become so ubiquitous, they can't really support pushing out the amount of content that they're pushing out at the rate they're pushing out, and have it always be cutting edge, and have it always being super innovative, and this is integral, having it be super stable. So they've mentioned that they are really focused on making sure that Blender, as it is rolled out into these LTS models, is very, very stable, very bulletproof, and they want to make sure everything is completely tightened up and ready to go. And that's exactly why they pushed it a week. They want to make sure any bugs, any major problems are all solved. So that's kind of a cool thing. Blender Lab is kind of an interesting experiment, because it will mean there are people that aren't necessarily Blender specific or in the Blender Foundation necessarily that will be experimenting with new things and creating new tools that will hopefully eventually go down the river enough to get integrated with Blender itself in an LTS model. So very, very cool. And they do technically have proposals open. I don't really know how that works. I can't imagine, you know, some knucklehead can just roll in and be like, hey, I'd like to pioneer some things for you. It's not the old days where you could just roll up with a canoe and a coonskin cap and a dog and be like, hey, I'd like to go check out the Louisiana Purchase. Now it's a little bit, you have to fill out forms and you have to kind of prove some credibility. You have to have a CV that has said, yes, I have conquered territory before. So if that's of any interest to you, if you feel like you are a great candidate to put together a team to work with Blender Lab, be sure to check that out. Again, that's going to be in the show notes below. Now we're going to get into our main portion here, get into the live demonstration. This is going to be kind of like a tutorial, only I'm just kind of talking to you. There's going to be no edit, obviously. Otherwise, I would edit out most of the beginning. all of the beginning. That was horrific. Worst fear come to life. But that's totally okay. It's funny. I actually had a thought in the shower today of like, how stupid would I look if I just started talking with the microphone off? I got to be sure I never do that. I literally had that thought today. So, regardless, we're going to get into the main point here. We're going to get into a tutorial-like thing, and we're going to cover Blender 5.0. Now, something I really love and respect about Blender, the Blender development and the Blender Foundation and the Blender development team is that they really listen to their audience. And they really balance, like, I'm not going to do fan service, and I'm not going to just give you a half-baked tool just because you want it. And they also don't just say, you know what, we know what's best. We don't really care what our consumer base wants. We're just going to come up with a product, and they're going to love it. Instead, they really focus on the fundamentals. They focus on adding really useful tools. And like I said at the top of the show, I kind of resent the concept or the idea that having a video that's like, this is super groundbreaking, I feel like that's a little misleading. Saying that this new 5.0 release is the most groundbreaking, crazy, newest thing that completely changes the way we do animation. No, it's not. I mean, the sensationalization, it makes a great thumbnail, but that's not at all what's happening here. This is a really solid, modest release that takes tools that have been in Blender for a long time, and it just kind of brings them to the forefront. They might have been tucked in a drawer or kind of hidden away behind a menu, but now it just kind of brings it up, and it makes it easier for the layperson to access some of these more annoying things to set up or the more difficult concepts to grasp. So before I really get into it and start showing my screen and doing all this, I did want to just cover a few of the highlights, things that I feel like have been covered ad nauseum, but they're still worth mentioning. I think, I can't cover Blender 5.0 without mentioning these things, but they have been covered by people smarter and better than me. The first of which is adaptive subdivision. Now, my very good friend Nickel did a tutorial with School of Motion recently, and it was talking, he kind of covered adaptive subdivision. And there are essentially two ways that adaptive subdivision works. There is the kind of camera culling method where, and that's what he covers, where it's like the things closest to the camera that need more detail, all of the subdivision is focused right there. And the things that are kind of out and a little bit maybe out of focus or more ancillary, those are going to get less subdivision. And so it works that way. And the second way, to how I understand it, is it divvies up based on the density of the mesh. So it works a lot like I was trying to, as I'm speaking, I was trying to remember what it's called. It's not Dynamesh. ZBrush has something very similar where when you sculpt small detail, it will add a whole lot more geometry right where you sculpted, and then everything else will have less geometry. It works very similarly to that. So if you have little rocks kind of throughout scattered like a dirt texture, it will make those rocks have more geometry than the pieces that are more like a sheer surface. So that's essentially what's going on with adaptive subdivision, and it's just a way to optimize things. So kind of in that tone, something that hobbyists probably won't give a singular rip about, but for people who work with clients or work on a project and they have to archive it and they want to come back to it, something that's very exciting, you can now link you can now package linked data. So if you are linking an object or a character or something like that, you can now package it within a Blender file. So if you throw it in the closet for a while and then you bring it back out a couple months later and the file structure is completely changed, you can now still access it, and it's not going to give you a long list of error codes. It is still available because it's now linked and packed within the Blender file. So that's super exciting. This next piece is exciting to almost no one, and I do mean that, almost no one. I can think of maybe two people I know that have probably ever used this feature, but the character limit for naming conventions has now increased from 63 to 255. So you can now jam in as many emojis as you want into a naming convention. So if you can have it cube _001 _ box underscore, kissy face, smiley face, unicorn. And you can go all the way. You can include every emoji pretty much with 255 characters. So that is, of course, pretty useful if you're in something like AAA Studio, or perhaps you're working on a movie scene and you need data blocks that have 255 characters to go with particular tags maybe. But I'm never going to use that ever. If I'm at a point where I'm at version, something that has 255 characters, shoot me in the head, because I need to get off that project immediately. The next piece that I think is kind of interesting, and I don't really see it mentioned anywhere, thin film has been added to the metallic shader. So that's kind of cool. The metallic shader, if you're a shader builder, is kind of like a BSDF that's specifically for metals, and now you can have the thin film, which changes kind of the iridescence of it. So it gives it kind of a flame metal look. I think it's kind of cool. Minor, but exciting for, I guess, shader heads. And the last piece that I think is kind of a bigger deal to some people, we now have a dedicated storyboard workspace. Now, I'm a creature of habit. I like to storyboard in Photoshop or in Procreate. But I know that some people really like that kind of stuff. They like the Toon Boom-esque feeling of grease pencil almost. So storyboarding or doing animatics within this new workspace is very exciting. So if anybody's out there and just really wants to try that out, let me know how it is. If you're a storyboard artist, or you're going to start storyboarding a project and you want to try out that new feature, message me on Instagram. If you've already tried it, you can comment below. Let me know how it is. But I'm probably not gonna crack it. Not really my bag. So we're gonna get into some live demonstrations now. I'll switch it, and I will make sure my microphone is on. My microphone's on, and you can all see my display. This is excellent. So the first thing we're going to actually get into is the modifiers, the geometry node-based modifiers. So there are a few new modifiers in Blender 5.0, and a lot of what they've really done is just essentially taken geometry node processes, these really annoying node trees that you have to set up for very simple processes, and they've brought them in and packaged them nicely as a modifier. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over the scatter on surface modifier first. It's very useful in a lot of different scenarios. But specifically what we're going to do is we're going to take this stylized Pokemon-esque grass, and we're going to scatter it on this surface here. So I'm just going to grab this, and you can go to the little wrench here, and we're going to add scatter on surface just like that. And now you can see we have a few boxes, and guess what? They are scattered on a surface. So right off the bat, it is already delivering on some promises, which is super exciting. Now you can change the density, or you can change the amount. Now the amount, it starts at 1,000. As you can see, as we kind of scroll this up and down, it adds and subtracts. But I find that density just works a whole lot better. Specifically because you want to kind of control not exactly how many instances are scattered, but you want to control more of like the density of and how they're scattered. And specifically, when we use the density distribution method, we can also change it to Poisson disk. I believe that's how it's pronounced. I'm not French. I don't even know if that's a French word, but it looks like poison with an extra S. So maybe it's Poisson. It's Poisson disk, and this word that is obscured by my illiteracy essentially changes the minimum distance between each instance. So if you have 1,000 instances and you want to scatter them across the surface, you can change the force field around each one. So there's no clipping. There's nothing competing. Nothing's spawned on top of each other, and you don't have to fight with the seed number to get it right. You can just increase this a little bit, and you know what? I'm going to set this to 0, and then I'm going to change the density to like 500. And you can see here we have a few things like over here, they're kind of clipping together, and we really don't want that in our scene. So what we can do is go to the minimum distance, and we can just increase that, and now there is a minimum distance that is required between each instance. It's entirely helpful. So that is really fantastic. Another thing, one more small feature they have here, you can keep surface or turn it off. Having it on obviously has the surface that it's being scattered on. It keeps it included, but you can turn it off, and then of course it will be off, and now you can just have the instances. So we'll keep that on for now, and we're going to actually take a look at how to scatter them and control them once we get them scattered. So you'll notice under all this we have the instancing drop down, the instancing toggle, and I can use this eyedropper, and I'm just going to choose a single blade of grass right here. And as you can see, I don't know why. Maybe it's like kind of the uncanny. It's what's that called? Trypophobia, maybe. But this just unsettles me. I hate the way this looks, and it makes me kind of angry. It makes my blood boil a little bit. So if I pass out from high blood pressure, I think my wife's in the other room. Everybody spam F in the chat if I die from anger towards the way this looks. But we're going to make that not look like that real quickly. We're going to go from the transform here. We're going to drop this down, and we're going to turn off align rotation. And now that's so much better. It's still kind of creepy looking a little bit, but, you know, c'est la vie. Hey, there's some French. And now, when it's not align rotation, it is keeping its original orientation. But if we turn align rotation back on, it's going to align it to the vector of the object that it's being scattered across. So we're going to turn this off for now because, again, I don't really like it. And we're also going to go down to randomize. And I can just tick on randomize like that. I can scroll down here. And now we have some parameters that we get to actually change the randomization of. So I'm going to change the value of the Z rotation to 360 so that it has a full range of randomization. And maybe I'll change the randomization to, like, I don't know, 45 in the X. Which is great because now you have things, it looks a little bit more organic, a little bit more frenetic, just like it would with normal grass. And another thing I can do is actually increase the scale value, and this is going to change the randomness of the scale. So it's a float from 0 to 1, 0 meaning there is no randomness, and 1 meaning it can go all the way down to 0. So we're going to just kind of keep this kind of neutral, maybe like 0.4-ish, something like that. And now if I kind of zoom in here a little bit closer, we can see some of it is clipping through, but then some of it is also not poking all the way down through the mesh. So we need it to actually set down into the mesh a little bit further. And that's where something like surface offset comes in. So we can just kind of pull that down. And now all these little blades of grass go down into the surface, which is really great. The last thing I want to show before I kind of show the collection side of this is you can also change the viewport visibility. So if I had an insane amount of scattering going on, and it was really gumming up my scene, I could just drop this down and it will remain much more tame, much more choked back in the viewport. But then when we actually get to a render, it's going to be the full range of it. So that's worth noting as well. Now let's go ahead and turn off randomization just like this. And we can change this from object, the instance type right here under instancing. We can change this from object to collection. And what this is going to do now is going to give us a collection box, selector, doesn't matter. And we're going to drop this down and look up grass collection. And now our grass is over there. Wouldn't that just be great if every time you had to mow the lawn, you just clicked a box that said grass collection and your grass got up and it walked across the street to your neighbor's yard. That would just be awesome. But unfortunately, that's not the way things work, so we want this to be a little bit more realistic, so we're going to make sure we click Pick Instance. And that's going to make it so that rather than saying, okay, this whole collection should be used as an instance itself, which in some cases could be helpful, especially if you have a whole bunch of different objects. If these 3 pieces of grass were actually 3 separate objects and I wanted to split them into their own collection, that could be a good use of that. But for this, each one of these is its own unique object, and I am using this collection to drive it. And so I want every time that it sets down an instance, I want it to pick a different one. So it's going to randomly select one and then insert it as an instance. And if we drop down this, if we toggle reset, deform, or transform, it's going to put it right back over there in our neighbor's yard. So we want to make sure that is on so that it scatters perfectly across our mesh and actually stays on top of our mesh. Everything else works exactly the same way. If I do a line rotation, we're back to the creepy look, and the randomize, it does what it says. It randomizes. So that is the scatter on surface node or modifier now. I think it's really helpful. I think it's a really great addition to kind of the Blender tool set, and definitely will be using it a lot for like grass, rocks, bushes, stuff like that. But I have also seen people use it kind of on a larger scale to add random objects. So like they have like whole trees as a collection, and they use the collection as a single thing. They don't pick an instance, and then they have the trees all scattered on one object, and that way it's linked and instanced rather than there being like 100 trees on it. So there's all kinds of great applications of that. So we're going to go ahead and turn that off, and we're going to turn on our next set here, and we're going to take a look at the modifier curves to tube. So this one is kind of cool. A very similar thing. At first I was like, this is entirely superfluous. This does not matter at all. The first time I played with this, I was like, this is completely pointless. But the more I played with it, the more I realized there are really two takeaways from this modifier that make it so much better than its predecessor. So let's take a look at its predecessor. If I wanted to use this as like a cable or a rope or some kind of an object that had some thickness to it, I would go down to the data properties panel right here, and I would increase the depth, and I'd just kind of scale it up a little bit, and we'll put it at like, I don't know, 0.1, okay? And there we go. Now I have it. And if I wanted caps, I could click fill caps, but that's about it. This has two main problems. The first problem is there's no round caps. It's only butt caps, or no caps at all. Which I guess it's not the end of the world, but it does kind of present a problem when you want to do cooler like spline work. It's something that like Cinema 4D has had. It's something that Maya, I think, has something very similar. And it's missing the round cap. The round cap looks so much better. Just add it in. And well, they finally did. But for a long time, they didn't have it, and it was really irritating. And if you wanted it, you kind of had to go way around to achieve it in a very annoying way. So now that's included, and I'll show you that in a minute. But the second thing is, and I'll demonstrate this, there are no UVs on curves. If you have a curve object, you either have to convert it to a mesh and then UV unwrap it, or you have to use trilinear projection or triplanar projection in order to get a UV onto a curve like this. So two very annoying options. Neither do I prefer, and that is where something like the modifier or the curves to tube really comes in handy. So I'm going to click that, and there we go. Immediately, it looks great. It's almost indistinguishable. But here's where it really gets distinguishable. Of course, you have your scale slider. You have your resolution. So if I shade this flat, we can see as I bump up the resolution, it just gives more geometry around the circle. I can keep this shaded smooth, but then we can go down to caps. We can drop this down. We can see by default we have a butt cap on it, and I can tick off the cap feature just in general, and now we have no caps. And now we can change it from, okay, I guess it's called flat. I don't like that they called it flat cap. I want them to call it butt cap, because that's what it's called in all other softwares. I was not allowed to say the word butt growing up, and now I can say butt cap because it's in a professional context. But unfortunately, it's now a flat cap, so that's a real bummer. So we're going to change this from flat cap to round cap, and look at that, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, we did it. We've got a round cap in Blender. That's just amazing. That's really great. So, really, really exciting time. Blender, if I was wrong. I did not believe the hype. I'll turn in my I was wrong, my apology form to Blender. This is earth-shattering. This is a game changer. This does change everything. I was wrong. This is the biggest update that there's ever been. It's bigger than light linking. It's bigger than ASUS, which we'll get into later. This is the biggest thing, the round cap. Now, let me blow your minds further, because I know I can feel your energy. I can feel your energy behind your computer, your TV, or your phone screen. You're all just frothing at the mouths, just excited about the round caps. But I can prove that it's going to be even crazier. We also have UV maps, and I don't want to blow your mind here. Actually, I do. That's the whole point of this. But they do follow the curve all the way around. So pretty exciting stuff. And I'm going to demonstrate that with a new little tool that I like to call payload. So I'm going to plug this a little prematurely. We're going to actually probably launch it if I can ever get around to committing to a timeline. We're going to actually launch this next week. It is a tool that makes material management so much easier. It really takes some of the stress off your knees while you're texturing a scene or managing your materials. So I'm going to just kind of tease it in order to kind of show you what's going on here. But so I'm going to put this into material preview mode. And we're going to take this, and I'm just going to use UV checker. And as you can see, that looks horrific. That goes down in the Guinness World Record book of the worst looking UVs. So in order to salvage this, again, I would either need to convert it to a mesh and UV unwrap it that way, or I would need to go up here and I would need to change this to box triplanar. And now we have triplanar projection on that mesh. But as you can see here, we still kind of get these weird seams. You could blend it. I mean, you could finesse it and you could get it to work. But, you know, as soon as you move something, it just looks stupid and it looks really bad. So here at Sweet Boy Studio, we hate things that look stupid. And we hate things that look bad. So we're going to do the exact opposite. And let me just click this right here. And I'm going to change this back. Again, I'm plugging payload. We're going to change this back from box triplanar to UV mapped, just like that. And I will click it, and it will apply it to there. And as you can see, we have really clean UVs. They're a scooch stretched. So, you know, I don't love that. I've never played around with this, so I don't even know if I can change these parameters. They're a scooch stretched, but honestly, if you have something like a rope material or like a paracord or a rubber or something like that, it's never really going to matter. It's never really going to matter. So that's totally fine. And you know, we can take it a step further here. If I grab this and move it out, oh, the UVs follow. Oh, is that just? Are you the greatest? This is just awesome. So that's a super exciting feature of both Payload, my newest app that's coming next week, hopefully, and also of Curve to Tube. So like I said, this is the greatest thing that's been added into Blender. There's really nothing that even comes close to it. Nothing even scratches the surface. This is the superlative drop. So we're going to move on to the next piece here, and we're going to go over the array tool. A tool that is so notoriously annoying in Blender that I almost stopped using it altogether. It is such a simple premise. You have an array. You duplicate it. You should be able to duplicate it in a circle without having to do 50 button clicks, without having to install some joker's extra plugin. And I say that as a joker who's trying to sell plugins. But it's been a notoriously annoying thing to set up. But now they have it super, super simple. So if I grab this right here, I can go to add modifier. We're going to add an array. I'll close down payload. And it's just the normal array. You can see it right here. It's very normal, nothing crazy about it. But we can change it from the shape from line to circle like this. And now nothing happens. But just watch this. You guys have seen this all over the place. This is nothing new. I'm not really demonstrating this for the sake of breaking news to you, but this is very cool and it's worth talking about. It's what the public it's what people are talking about in public now. So yeah, public for motion designers. Nobody in my friend circle or sphere is talking about it, but that's okay. So this is very cool. Of course, you can change the radius, you can change the count, you can change the central axis, you can even change the alignment of the rotation. You can randomize it for some reason. Don't know why you would want to do that at that point. Just, you know, duplicate it and move it around. But it does have that function. And again, it was something that was mildly annoying and brought it to the forefront and made it a little bit more accessible. So the circle thing is not sexy or particularly interesting, but it is something that is a massive utility boost to the average user. So I'm going to show array in a slightly different way now. You can see here we have a small, humble stack of bricks. And you might be wondering, how can this stupid 4-brick pile turn into a full wall? And I'm happy to tell you it's through only using an array modifier. So we're going to add array, and rather than using the line or the circle, we're going to change this to curve. And immediately it goes away. So we're going to go to curve object right here with the little, whatever this is, the eyedropper, and we're going to grab this, and obviously that's not a wall. This is a wall after the barbarians have stormed it and knocked it over. So we now need to set the wall back up and make sure we are protecting the village. So we can do that a number of ways, but the first thing we want to focus on is how deep the gap between the different objects are. You can see we can change the count, and I could go through here and try to guess how many there need to be. That's not a particularly useful way to go about that. So instead we're going to change it to distance, and now we can change how much distance is between each object, and it will interpolate the difference by adding in more objects, more instances as we expand that out. Now, this is kind of I guess I'll say this real fast before we go about fixing it. You can toggle between relative space and not. When it's not in relative space, if I move this around, you see the little origin point, but nothing actually happens. If I take this off, I can move it wherever and it will maintain its orientation to the array. Oh, that's kind of cool. It looks like a wave. So I'm just going to keep relative space on. Now you might notice, no, I'm not. I'm going to turn it off and I'm just going to move it over here so I have a little bit of ease of use. Now you might notice there's something a little bit wrong with this wall. And I would say it's an excellent path. If we wanted to make a cobblestone path, it's there. But unfortunately, this is not going to stop any barbarians from breaching the gates. So what we need to do is actually change its orientation. Now, this is kind of funny. This took me way too long to figure out. And I'm telling you these things so that perhaps when you're going about making your own brick wall, your chain, whatever you want, you might solve it without feeling like a fool. So we can go down to align rotation, and if we toggle this off, you'll see it just maintains its original position, which is like this. But again, not a particularly convincing wall. It's a little bit pixelated. So we want to align it to rotation. We want it to follow the curvature even in its rotation attribute. So let's take a look at this. Let me turn this off and let's just puzzle through this together. Okay, so we have the forward axis, which would be the forward trajectory of the instancing. Check. Okay, so this is X and it follows the X. So, okay, nailed it. So then, okay, it's laying down on its face. The problem must be with the up axis. Well, the up axis is the Z axis or the Z axis, depending on where you hail from. So why on earth would it be anything other than that? Now I could just do a little switcheroo here and change this around. And I could get it close and I could keep playing with it until I get almost where I want it. But then I'm just toggling back and forth between a whole bunch of different things, not really knowing how I'm getting what I'm getting. Here's a wall that is actually supplanted into the ground. Again, just about as useless as our path. And even if I get it solved by, combining all these different combinations of the forward and the up axis, I still don't really know why I'm getting what I'm getting. So it took me a while of just kind of thinking around and clicking through all these different options, not really understanding why it was happening this way. And I thought, you know what, live on the stream, I'll just admit my folly. I'll admit that I'm an idiot, and I'll poll the live chat and see if anybody's smarter than me. But I figured it out. I can now gloat that I am, in fact, the smartest person alive. Actually, right now, I think, last time I checked, I'm the smartest person alive. If I open my panel here, I go up to my transform menu, we can see that we can change the tilt of the curve. So if I change the tilt to -90, now our wall is standing up. So that was the problem. When I added in a curve, by default, the tilt was set kind of oriented. If you think about the tilt, it's like a vector of the curve and it's pointed one way. And by changing the tilt, you're pointing the vector axis a different way. So by changing that, I was able to reorient my wall. Now I can kind of adjust it so that they're not maybe overlapping as heavily. And there we have a beautiful brick wall, completely non-destructive and generated just from the new array modifier. Now again, that is something that could be achieved with I think it was in a combination of an array and a curve, but it was really annoying and it didn't always work in a way that you would expect. So this is a much more friendly way to do it, and it's just right there at your fingertips. You can use it as quickly as adding a subdivision surface modifier. So super exciting on that front. And now we're going to move on to something. I think I might lose a couple people here. I love grease pencil. In fact, I'm not gonna spill any beans here, but there's a real possibility that there is a really exciting collaboration coming up between me and an unnamed entity and a very cool grease pencil course. So, again, I'm not gonna bury a lead, not gonna spill anything, but that's something to think about. Grease pencil is really cool. It's got a ton of features. I'm seeing people talk about motion blur in grease pencil, and to that I say, who cares? Who uses that? Who's using motion blur in grease pencil? The whole idea is to kind of simulate. Now that I say that, people are going to be like, well, I use it. Okay, well, get off my stream then. But I'm not using motion blur and grease pencil. Don't care about that. But there was a feature that was just kind of snuck under the radar a little bit with grease pencil. So I'm going to add in a blank. And if I tab into edit mode, does anybody see class? Does anybody see what our default tool is when we enter into edit mode? It's a pen tool. It's a pen tool. It works just like in After Effects or Illustrator or Photoshop or any number of, maybe Canva probably has something like this at some point, or at this point. It now has a pen tool where we can actually pen things together. So I've made this amorphous blob here. It's very exciting. And now if I click this last thing, it closes it. And all of these are Bezier handles. We can go through and we can actually change them and move them and mutilate them however we want. And yes, very, very exciting day for the grease pencil users. This is another one of those things that it's like, okay, thanks. Like this should have been already in here. So it's hard, you know, you want to be grateful. You want to say, thank you, Blender Foundation. I really appreciate you adding a pen tool, but it's also, there's a little part of you that's like, why was this not already in here? But you know, that's neither here nor there. That doesn't really matter, I suppose. So we're gonna delete that, and I'm gonna move on to the next piece here. We have a little melted snowman guy here that I just modeled in 0.5 seconds. It probably looks like it, but we're going to use him to demonstrate the new lattice tool, which I think is pretty interesting. Now, previously, when you added a lattice in, you would go to add lattice, and it would just drop a lattice sphere wherever your 3D cursor or cube, wherever your 3D cursor was, just like anything else. And then you would have to go through kind of the frustrating task of orienting it to everything, and you want to get it just right so it doesn't deform weird. And there you go. Now you got it there. And now you would have to either go through one at a time. Oops, that's embarrassing. From a test run, I still have a lattice assigned to everything, so we're just going to make sure everything gets rid of that. Okay, there we go. So you would have to go through here and add a lattice deformer like this and add it that way. Or you would have to select everything with the lattice as the last object and then do Command P and go down to lattice deform, and that would add the lattice to the object, but it would also parent it to the lattice box as well, which is not always ideal, especially if you're doing something like, you know, a deformation of some kind where it's like it's moving and it has the kind of the internal kind of blob inside where it kind of moves it up. You guys know what I'm talking about. But now Blender 5.0 has added in a lattice deform selected, and that's going to take anything you have selected. So I can select my whole mesh here. I can hit Shift A, and I can click this second lattice form. And it's going to add in a lattice that's actually formed to the entire selection, so I don't have to do that manually. And just right off the rip, everything is already assigned to it through the modifier. But if I move the lattice, it is not parented to it, which is also extra exciting. So from here, you know, just right off the rip, I can go in here and I can change these parameters to have as many subdivisions as I want. And this is what I was talking about earlier, by the way, just in case people think I'm crazy. I can't even select in the matrix here. Okay, whatever. We're going to do this. I'm going to hit O. I'm going to expand this like this. And now, if I pull this down, it's going to morph. It's going to morph it. That's what I was talking about. It doesn't really matter almost at all, but I wanted to show you what I was talking about. So that's pretty exciting for that piece. And the next couple things are a little bit more on the technical side, but I think they're still worth noting and taking a look at together, rather than just you having to kind of slog through all this yourself or watch 50 sensationalized videos. But you can go up to the drop down up here, and you can go down to the Compositor tab. And if I turn on the backdrop, boom, jump scare, there's me. And so we're gonna zoom out a little bit, because that is a little disturbing, truthfully. So we're gonna zoom out a little bit. That's an actual photo of me. A lot of people think that is CGI. They think it's a render, but that is a photograph. Oh, I just horribly burnt my tongue. Okay, my tongue's a mangled mess now. So here in the Compositor tab, wow, that really hurt. Okay, here in the Compositor tab, we now have the option. You'll notice at the very bottom, you have the option to kind of drag and drop some of these data blocks in here, and they do different things. So we're going to drag in the chromatic aberration. We can drag that in, and we can just set it right there. And you can see a little bit of fringe here, a little bit of chromatic aberration. But if I just really crank that up, it'll think, there we go. And honestly, that looks pretty good, truthfully. That kind of looks like, like a guy who's kind of going crazy. So that's kind of cool. That's actually a perfect iteration of that. So another thing we can add here just to kind of play with it, we have split toning. This is really great for like color grading. You know, you want kind of that more cinematic look with the oranges and teals. You can do that. And then I think really truthfully, you can play with all this. You know, it's kind of like the old I don't even know the old camera on like the iPads, where it kind of had all the different filters and the silly things. You could make your head look like an hourglass, or you could do the sepia tone or whatever. But so there's some novelties here. There's some things that you add in. And if you're not going to an external compositor, this might really be the place to do that. But really, in my opinion, the thing that matters the most is the tune image. So I'll drop this in here and just kind of show you. You can pop that right here. And now you can just change the color boosts, you can change clarity, detail, sharpening, and you can add in some of these post effects that you would usually do in like After Effects or Premiere or DaVinci Resolve. And you can add those in straight from inside of Blender, which is, it's pretty cool. You know, I think it definitely has its place. And of course, if you hit tab, you can see all of the different nodes that are going into this. So this is a great example of what I'm talking about. To get all of these different parameters to make this image look slightly worse, just from this, you would have to use all of these different nodes and connect these up, and that requires its own little science. You know, it requires you to know a whole lot about it. So instead, now they have these kind of pre-packaged data blocks for you, so you can just drag and drop them in. So very cool, very non-destructive, and especially combined with something like a multi-layer EXR, that's really exciting to be able to kind of add and experiment with stuff in a very non-destructive way. So the last thing that I kind of want to show you, and it's a little bit less hands-on because it is more of just a, hey, here's what it is, and then, or here's where it is, and then we'll talk about what it is. But in the render properties, truthfully to me, this was the only thing in 5.0 that I'm like, well, aside from curves to tube, of course, this is really the only thing that I have found to be like a complete game changer. This is the game changer right here. It's ASUS CG. It's the ability to change the color working space to ASUS, and we'll get into why that is in just a moment. But I usually previously worked in AGX with the punchy look, and nothing speaks AGX. You can get there. You can get After Effects to speak AGX. You can get Resolve actually might have some OCIO like color profile changes, but it's a little bit cheaty to get there, and you're certainly never going to find a professional studio that's not Blender using AGX. No Maya, Cinema, Houdini users are using this, so it really does limit things that you can do to kind of work cross-platform. So instead, what they've added now is the ability to go into ASUS 2.0 or 1.3, depending on what you want. And then you can go, and really this is the most important part because this changes the look of it. It changes the view that you have. You know, I think that's mildly important, so you can kind of color match, but it's not going to work the way you want it to work until you, oh my goodness, okay, here we go. Until you go down to working space and you change it from linear Rec 709 to ASUS CG. Now, this is one of those things that I think is very similar to something like light linking. Back in I don't know when that was, 4.0, 3.5, where they finally, it might have been 4.0. They finally added light linking, and it's like, thank you. Like, thank you. This takes Blender and it moves it a little bit further down the field of being an actually professionally viable tool. So ASUS CG, somebody asked me about this very early on in the live stream. I think hours before we even streamed, so that's dedication. So I want to be sure that I address it. But somebody asked what ASUS CG was and why that matters and how that's important. And truthfully, the biggest takeaway from it, there's, of course, so many nerdy things that I am very, very ill-equipped to give you a full rundown on, but the biggest and most important part of it is essentially that you now have a wider color gamut. So whereas with linear Rec 709, you had limited colors, and nobody was really using that in a professional industry standard or setting, you now have a much wider range of colors. The colors are going to look punchier. It's going to be a little bit better. When you export from Blender, it's not going to kind of have that desaturated, ugly look. And you can now work a little bit more viably with kind of cross-platform employees or clients or something like that. So if you give somebody a image that's now ASUS CG, they might be able to use it a little bit better than if they would have if it would have been Rec 709. So it's very important and exciting for people more on the professional side, and especially people working with clients. But that's probably a horrible explanation. I've said this a bunch. I'm not an engineer. I'm an artist. I make this. This is what I make. Well, you guys can't see it. This is what I make. I make this crazy looking thing. I'm not an engineer. I should not be a trusted source in very technical explanations, but I can give you an overview, and I can teach you just enough about the tool to give you blind confidence to be able to speak to people in a professional setting without really understanding what you're saying, which is really my specialty. That's my tool bag. So that's going to do it for our live demonstration today. I thought it went pretty good. I thought it was kind of interesting. If you guys have more specific things you'd like to see or you'd like to learn about, definitely let me know. You can let me know in the live chat. You can let me know on Instagram. I am now accessible via Twitter or X. I guess it's X. I hate that. It doesn't matter. Via Twitter/X, and tweet at me, DM me, let me know what you might want to cover. Just to give you a sneak peek, and this is subject to change because I'm a somewhat flighty guy. The topic for next week that I'm kind of toying with is actually, I posted something on Instagram a while ago, doing my logo animation in Blender. And I'm thinking to get into type animation in Blender and go over a few different ways that's attainable and walk you through that. So if that's of any interest to you, let me know. Let me know below. Let me know in the comments. Let me know if that's something you guys might like to see, or if you're like, no text animation from you, character boy. Give us more hair tutorials. You let me know, and I can accommodate that for sure. But we're gonna get into some questions and answers now. I'm gonna check this. I went ahead and asked people previously on Instagram if they had any questions for the live stream, and I got a few. So I'll check through the chat. I'm not entirely sure if there's people that had anything to say, any questions. But regardless, I have some predetermined questions. So if you have questions as I'm kind of going through these 4 that I already was given, drop them in the Q&A at the very top there. You can drop them there, and it will let me see them. You can also, I guess, ask in the live chat, but it's kind of hard for me to keep track of that. So, just let me know what you think there. And if you have any questions, I can answer them. But the first question, somebody asked me where I come up with my ideas. That's such a tough question to answer. I almost ignored it because I hate answering that. I see things. I have jokes. Usually I reverse engineer something. I'll have a joke of oh, this would be a really funny bit, and then I kind of reverse engineer it. Or sometimes it is the other way around, where it's I have this character, but oh, maybe it would be funny if he did this, and so then I kind of go from there. So that's really a horrible non-answer, but I really don't have a good straight up answer for you. It's completely random how I figure out my ideas. I know it's not a very satisfying answer, but you can't ask people how they catch lightning in a bottle, because we don't really know. Second question I had was asking about my texturing process. So I do use Payload. I can kind of, since you guys are here, I'll just show you this real quick. I mean, it's kind of cool. I use Payload. Let me make sure I'm okay. Cool. I use Payload for a lot of my texturing stuff. I'll walk you through all the little pieces of it before it actually drops. So as you saw previously, we have a one-click assign. This also works for faces and vertices. So in face selection mode, you can select any face and you can assign it with one click. You can select any object in the scene that has this assigned to it. You can duplicate it. You can change the projection mode. You can delete it outright from the file, another thing that's been notoriously kind of difficult to do in the past, as well as make it the override. And you see right here we have categories. You can now add categories and assign category tags to all your different materials, and you can sort them that way so that you can keep track of them, and you can always find them if they go missing. And then of course we have the adding a new material, clearing the material from any selected object, and cleaning up the file, just removing any unused materials that might be in there. And then there's the final nuclear object option, where when you click that, it deletes every material, every image, every node block, everything from your file, except for, of course, meshes and animation and stuff like that. But it deletes all of the potential shader information straight from your file. So that's Payload. That's not what you were asking. You were not asking what software I use to do that. But I do use Payload to do my texturing. And I use that in conjunction a lot with Grayscale Gorilla. Grayscale Gorilla has really awesome materials for pretty much anything you need. And they're not always perfect, exactly what you need for that project, but they're always very easy and very approachable to kind of beat with a hammer, beat with a stick, and get it to a more appropriate place to make it actually work for you. So there is, of course, that. Any material libraries that are like free, it's usually just at this point, it's not really even worth it to like dig through them. And the time spent trying to find something useful is just better spent somewhere else. So I would highly recommend Grayscale Gorilla. Check them out. And I would also recommend Southern Shoddy's Crafty Pack. He has a lot of really cool, very tactile, very rough-hewn materials that look really cool. And as far as material management or going about adding materials, I would recommend Payload. It's a very cool tool. So check that out next week. A third question I have here, they asked how I balance artistic preference with client needs. I feel like that is a question that a lot of people really struggle with. And this is something that I struggled with, especially when I worked in-house. It was very difficult to kind of balance having an artistic voice, an artistic perspective, and balance that with somebody saying no, not like that. And I've really struggled with that with freelance too, where somebody will hire me specifically because they love my artistic perspective, they like my aesthetic, they like my ideas, they think I'm kind of zany and creative, and so then I get on the job, and they're like, give me this, give me your version of this, and so I'll do that, and I'll give them my version of this. And art is, as much as we like to pretend it's commercialized and it's a business, it's still deeply personal. So then I'll give them a piece of myself, and I'll package it up so nicely. I'll give it to them, and I'll say, here's a part of me. And they'll say, actually, legal came back with notes, and we need you to like change everything about it. And then I crash out, and I say, I'm never going to do freelance again. I'm gonna go build fences in Montana. That's what a previous coworker of mine, and what his joke was, is he's gonna go build fences in Montana. But it's really hard. It is really hard to balance kind of the intimacy of artistic expression with the needs of clients. So again, I probably didn't answer that particularly well, other than to say it's very difficult and it's a tightrope walk. And at a certain point, you have to kind of just like flag, okay, this is for the money. This is there's a interview that I saw recently with Harrison Ford where he's talking about how silly he might feel doing the Red Hulk stuff, and he says, I don't want to burst your bubble, but that's what the money's for. And I think very similarly of like, how do you balance these two things? I don't want to burst your bubble, but that's what the money's for. But I was talking to my buddy Jason Vigu, Viggs as he's affectionately known around the world and in the fort. But I was talking to him, and we were talking about client work is showing up in your reel, and he was saying that he was really kind of disappointed with some of the stuff because the clients wanted to change some things that he would have kept the same, and it ended up kind of killing it for him. And this was my advice to him, because this is what I do. If I do something and I think it's really cool, and I think it's absolutely the right path forward, or even it's just it looks cool or it feels cool, but it doesn't really serve utility, and a client or a legal team or whatever says, no, can't do that, I save it or I annotate it and I say, this is what I would have done. And then once the project's wrapped up, once the NDA is lifted, once whatever happens, and I can move on with it, I can put it on my reel, I'll go back and I'll make those changes that I initially either made or wanted to make. And then it will go in my reel as something that is more soulful and a little bit more personal. So if you're struggling with that at all, maybe that helps you annotate it and go from there. And last question that I have from Instagram, they asked my typical pipeline for characters. I have an entire series on that. This is a question I get asked every time I do it. I should be very thankful that people reach out and ask nice questions, but I'm not going to be thankful. I have an entire series on that. If you ask me how to do something, check my YouTube. I have a whole list of really, really in-depth tutorials, some probably too in-depth, where I'm just talking the whole time. but I have so many good resources for character design, or I don't even know if they're good. I just have resources. So anyway, if you want to learn my typical pipeline for characters, go watch that series. It's a 4-part series right here on YouTube. It is not even remotely difficult to find. You can do it. I believe in you. I hope that it helps you. I don't see any other questions here in the live chat. If you had them, I apologize. Can you animate me some friends? No, I can't do that. So no problem. You know, it's like I said, we're kind of figuring this whole format out. You know, we're figuring this format out. We're trying to figure out how it goes. We're starting with the mic off. Nobody's going to ask me questions. Nobody loves me, but that's okay. We're going to Eeyore our way out of it, but that's okay, guys. Well, thank you so much for watching. I think that's going to do it for us this evening. This has been a really interesting first pilot episode. I've had a great time just shooting the breeze with you guys and walking you through some of my pipelines. Again, like the video, subscribe, please. If you're not subscribed already, comment down below what you'd like to see different, or if you'd like to see me cover something next week. I'm very open. Like I said, I'm very finicky and flaky. My idea of the text-based animation is not really locked in. So if you have thoughts, drop them below, and we'll figure that out. Yeah, like, subscribe, comment. Follow me on Instagram if you're not already. Follow me on Twitter. You can find me at sweetboy.motion. I'll be posting updates about the show and news stuff there. And one more plug here. If you're not subscribed to members only, you get some really cool benefits. You get project files for absolutely free. You get half off any product or course that I ever drop. You get access to very exclusive project videos where I break down things in a much more comprehensive way. And then, of course, you get access to the Fort, which is a private Discord server with some really talented artists. So thank you all for being here this evening. I really appreciate it. Hopefully, with the blessing of my schedule and the YouTube algorithm, I'll be back here next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Be sure you tune in. Tell your friends. Bring everyone here. For whatever reason, I thought my concurrent viewer count would be roughly 2 million. So we're just shy of that. So next week we'll try to get it up to 2. But thank you so much for being here tonight. I really appreciate you. I hope you have a great evening.